Hello and welcome back to the Book to Movie Club. My name is Serena and our book club, our little book club in this corner of YouTube has grown to 1,000 subscribers. I am so excited, but also I have connected way too much meaning to that number and now I'm terrified. So I'm very happy, but also very nervous. So much so that this is a very delayed video. This video today, as you can see from the title, we're going to be talking about Bridgerton, and I was prepared to have this conversation weeks ago, but I was so nervous about people's reactions to this season that I held off on making this video. People have really hated this season, and with source material this whack, I don't know what they expected. I don't like these books. We're gonna get into that a little bit more. Before we do, thank you so much for everyone who has subscribed over the years. Thank you for watching my videos, for commenting, for recommending books for me to read and make more videos about, which will be coming up later in the month. I do appreciate it. And let's get into Bridgerton season 3 / book 4. What is it called? Romancing Mister Bridgerton. So Romancing Mister Bridgerton is book 4 in an 8-book series, the Bridgerton series. This is season 3 of the show. And it's mainly about book 4, and it combines a little bit of book 3 as well. I have not read book 3. I'm probably going to save that for when the next season comes out. And so I will only be focusing on that part of the plot in the show as I talk about this. Julia Quinn is an American author, and her first book, Splendid, was released in 1995. That is also, I believe, a 3-book series. And then she released the Bridgerton series. Book 1 was released in 2000. Book 2 was also released in 2000. And the rest of the books were released from 2001 to 2006. That's a lot of books to be releasing in such a short amount of time. And I think when you're telling a story like this, maybe who knows how long it took her to write these books. This was just the published date, but it's still, the fact that all of them were released so close together is concerning because they're not good. But anyway, before we get into the plot, I'm gonna start by saying I don't like these books. In part, I don't like romance books very much. There have been very few romance books that I have enjoyed. And these books in particular, if you watch the show, you know this, there is so much spice. Like, the amount of spice in the show is just as much spice as in the book, and I do not enjoy reading that. And I listen to the audiobooks because this is a 400 and something page book, and I can't spend that much time reading a romance. It's just not gonna happen for me. And so I listened to the audiobook, and hearing about the spice, I do think I've been desensitized because I have been reading a little bit more romance over the past year and a half. So this one wasn't as bad as when I tried to read the first book. I stopped. I never finished it. If you guys would like me to make videos about season 1 and season 2, book 1 and book 2, I will do that for y'all. But I'm not going to do that for no reason. And so I gave up. I gave up on book 1. But because I love Penelope's character so much, I did it. I mean, also to make this video. But anyway, let's get into the plot of Bridgerton, book 4, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. So Bridgerton, these series of books are all historical romances that take place in Regency era London. I'm going to be using the photos from the series so that you know who I'm talking about as I'm describing the characters in the novel, just so it all makes sense. But book 3 picks up with Penelope still hiding her identity as Lady Whistledown. Explanatory comma, Lady Whistledown has been writing these gossip columns and sending them out over the past 10 years And nobody knows who she is. But we know, as readers, that it is Penelope. And so Lady Danbury has put out a challenge to the community in London to find out who Lady Danbury is. I mean, who Lady Whistledown is. And she says she will pay the finder of Lady Whistledown 1,000 Great British pounds for solving this mystery. Now, I think in today's money, 1,000 pounds is like 100,000 pounds. I did Google this and I can't remember exactly. But it's a lot of money. And if I was offered 100,000 pounds to solve a mystery, I would be on my Zoom as well. And that's what the whole town is like. We're going to figure out who this person is. So while the hunt is on and Penelope is trying to hide who she is from everybody, she is also accepting that she is officially a spinster at the old age of 28 years old. She is yet to marry and has accepted that she probably never will. When Colin returns to town, reminding her how much in love with him she is, even though he doesn't care at all. Like, they're friends, but he's not interested. Until one day they kiss. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, they're just like having a conversation about being seen together. Or maybe there are some rumors. I can't remember this part exactly. But Colin brings up people thinking that they might be hooking up or making out and they shouldn't be seen privately together because rumors will spread. And him mentioning them making out makes Penelope kind of sad because she's #never been kissed. And so she's like, Colin, will you kiss me? Because he brings it up. He's talking about kissing, not her, but he's just like, people will think. And she's like, but will you? And he's like, okay, fine. No. But they kiss. And that's when he realizes that there might be a little something between them. He's like, there might be a spark or something. I'm sorry, the sun is setting. Let me turn on the light. Hold on. I hope that lighting is better. Anyway, after they kiss, Colin begins to realize that he might actually have feelings for Penelope. So later on, I believe this is at a separate event that Penelope and Colin are both at. Colin is giving Penelope a ride home in his carriage, and all of a sudden Penelope's top is off and they're making out and they're having a moment. And I was like, that escalated quickly. I think they were having a very heated debate about something. Can't remember what it was, doesn't matter. And then all of a sudden, her was in his mouth. And then they arrive to her place where he's supposed to be dropping her off like a gentleman. And she's like, dang, somebody probably saw your carriage pull up. I need to get out. And as she's getting out, he's like, okay, but are you going to marry me or what? It is the least romantic proposal I have ever heard in my life. It's not even like, oh my goodness, I enjoyed that so much. Will you marry me? He's like, are you going to marry me or what? And that's it. Anyway, so they're officially engaged. He tells her family when he shows up after. Okay, so he proposes and then they go into her house and Penelope's mom thinks he wants to marry Penelope's little sister. And so the whole time she's like, Penelope, go do this, go do that. And he's like, excuse me, this is my future wife here. And she's like, what about that one? And he's like, why would I want to marry that one when Penelope's right here? Anyway, that whole family is a mess. But yeah, so the engagement is official. Later on, I don't know how many days later, Colin is trying to visit his girl. He like pulls up to her house and he sees her getting into some unmarked carriage. It's not her family's carriage. It's some taxi carriage that he doesn't know anything about. And he's like, this is weird. Let me follow her to wherever she's going. So she pulls up to a church, walks in, he follows, and he sees her putting a note behind like a Bible in the pew situation. She's like hiding a note. And he's like, what is that? And she's like, please don't read it. And he's like, I'm gonna read it. And it is the next edition of Lady Whistledown's, what are they called? Lady Whistledown's Society Papers. And he's like, "You're Lady Whistledown?" And that's how he finds out. And she is terrified. She's like, "Don't judge me. Don't hate me." And he's like, "You need to stop doing this immediately." And Penelope considers it. She's like, "Maybe I will stop." Until Cressida announces to everybody at a function that she is Lady Whistledown. Now, she doesn't need the money. In the book, Cressida is a married woman. Financially, they're fine. Penelope and Colum assume it's just for the attention. And Penelope is not having it. She does not want Cressida to take credit for all of her hard work and her amazing writing as Lady Whistledown. And also, nobody believes Cressida anyways. And like, okay, Cressida, sure you are. So because Penelope is not having Cressida take this credit, she decides to write one more edition of Lady Whistledown Society Papers. I cannot remember the name of this. She decides to write one more edition, and it's supposed to come out next week, but instead it comes out the night of her engagement party, and Colin is big mad. He grabs her up and is like, "Why would you do this?" He makes her leave the engagement party early, and then they make passionate love. And I hate this book. First of all, I think the men in the Bridgerton series are very aggressive. Like, they're always very mean to the women that they end up marrying. And I don't know how factually accurate this is to the Regency era. But I'm not here for it. He snatches her up so hard that it leaves a bruise. And I'm like, this is officially domestic violence, and I don't want to read any more of it. Anyway, they leave the party and sleep together. And apparently they're fine. Colin is still upset about Penelope being Lady Whistledown, upset about the letter coming out at the engagement party, but he ends up forgiving her. He realizes that he is a bit jealous of her success and her writing skills and his lack of passion for any type of work. I'm not sure how to describe this, but he's like, "I want a thing, and I don't want my thing to just be accepted or praised because I'm a Bridgerton. I want people to think that I am good at something." And so he's jealous that Penelope is good at something and ends up getting over it. He recognizes that that is how he feels and is like, "That's not right. And so I accept that you are Lady Whistledown." So Colin realizes that he's jealous, acknowledges how much he loves her, and then they get married and they're very happy. But of course, that happiness can't last for long. Cressida is still in the way. She realizes that Penelope is Lady Whistledown because as the conversations in the town, how do they say it? I can't pronounce it. Anyway, as the conversations about who Lady Whistledown truly is was going on, Penelope said something that she also said in that bonus edition of the Society Papers. I think the phrase specifically was, "It would break my heart." And that's what she wrote in the papers. And Penelope was like, "I've heard that before." And approaches Penelope and is like, "I know you're Lady Whistledown." And yeah. So Cressida is like, "You either pay me £10,000, which is way more than what was coming from Lady Danbury." How much? Hey Siri. So apparently £10,000 back then would be equivalent to £1,000,000 today. I guess that makes sense. If £1,000 was £10,000, if £1,000 was £100,000, then 10,000 would have been a million. That's crazy. You know what the wilder thing is? Penelope had the money. Penelope had the money because of the Lady Whistledown Society Papers. Cressida is like, "I know you've been raking it in over the past 10 years because we've all been paying for these papers. You have the money. Give it to me and I won't tell anyone." And Colin is like, we're absolutely not doing that. Colin and Penelope decide that they are not paying Cressida a dime. And Colin announces to everyone that Penelope is Lady Whistledown. He's giving this toast in front of a crowd at some event, a ball, I guess. And he's like, y'all, I love my wife. And y'all doubted my love for her, but she's amazing. So much so that she has been entertaining us for the past 10 years with these amazing society papers. And I guess everyone accepts that she's Lady Whistledown. They were really scared that it was going to ruin her reputation, but everything might be fine. Now, I did not read the epilogue because I have not read book 3. Book 3 is going to be the source material for season 4. It did come up in season 3. Of course, if you watched it, you've seen. But I didn't want the spoilers for book 3. And so I didn't read the epilogue. So the epilogue might talk more about how people reacted to this news. But I won't know until season 4 comes out. Or I read book 3 and then the epilogue for this. But anyway, like I said, I did not like this book. I knew I wasn't going to like it. It's too much spice and all the men are angry. Like the male love interest in these books, it's always... So season 1, again, I have not read any of the other books. But in season 1, I think they're like fake dating. The two mains are fake dating until they actually fall in love with each other so that she can get more interest from other men. But they're not nice to each other. And then in season 2, it's like a enemies to lovers situation, and they're also not nice to each other. And Colin, even though he wants to marry Penelope, it feels out of lust. He's like, I've done this to you. I've seen you topless and you're a lady, so I have to marry you. Love grows. But then he actually like bruises her because he's so mad. I'm not here for it. So I didn't necessarily enjoy this book. I was going to say, am I glad that I read it? Not really. I could have gone without it, but here we are. So let's do some comparisons to the series, shall we? I'm not going to go into the B plots, if that's what they're called, or the other people's lives in the show. So we have this family whose names I don't know. I love that they're a part of the show. They're not in the book. Like, no part of them is in the book. And so we're not going to talk about it. Also, this sister, whose name I don't know, she is also a Bridgerton, and her love story, which is going to be the plot of season 4, I'm assuming, is also a part of season 3. She gets married in this season, which I don't think has ever happened. Like 2 Bridgertons getting married in one season. This is the first time that's happened. And I'm not sure why they chose to do that. Anyway, we're not going to talk anymore about that. What other storylines? This Bridgerton obviously is in this season as well, and his girl is about to have a baby. And Mother Bridgerton is having some romantic feeling for someone as well. And another thing that's very different is that the Queen Charlotte, is not in the book at all. Like, she is not a part of any of this, but she's a big part of the series. And in the series, in this season, she's actually the one who puts up this challenge for people to find out who Lady Whistledown is. So in the show, Queen Charlotte is far more involved in everyone's life than in the book. She's not in the book at all. And Lady Danbury is like less involved in Penelope's life, at least, in the show than she is in the book. So yeah, all of Lady Danbury's personal stuff is not a part of the book either. I want to do a separate video about the Bridgerton series as a whole And so I'm not going to talk about those B plots, and I might talk about those in another video. If you want to see that, let me know. But yeah, basically the plot of the show is very much the same as the book. Colin comes back from traveling and Penelope's feelings for him show up again, but he's not really interested. They actually have beef because at the end of last season, Penelope heard him in conversation talk about how he would never marry Penelope. And so she's kind of mad at him, and she writes about him in Lady Whistledown's society papers. And so he has beef with Lady Whistledown. I think it's important that they added that to the show because it adds an extra layer of like tension. Like, dang, if he finds out, he's absolutely not going to marry you. And so Penelope, again, accepting that she is basically a spinster, she's like, I'm going to do with whatever I want. My mom is no longer picking out my outfits. I'm not wearing these ugly shades of yellow and orange. I'm not looking like citrus fruit. Let me get some jewel tones in here. And with her red hair, it looks amazing. And she gets the attention of this man whose name I don't know. But they start to get a little flirty. She still wants Colin's attention. And they do kiss. I think that scene is really stupid though. I don't like it as much as in the book because they're just talking and all of a sudden, it felt very sudden to me. Like, he doesn't bring up them being seen making out. Like, he doesn't introduce the topic of kissing, but all of a sudden she's like, will you kiss me? And it's like, girl, that's weird. But they do kiss, and then Colin starts to get some feelings and starts to get jealous of her liking this other dude and getting the attention from the other guy. And so he kind of gets in the way. This man is wealthy. He isn't around much, so Penelope will still have freedom to write Lady Whistledown without anyone down her neck or finding out. But Colin, being the jealous man that he is, like all the other men in the Bridgerton series, he like snatches her away and asks her to dance. And dude is like, is something happening between the two of them? And so he's like on the verge of proposing to Penelope. But because he thinks something is happening between Penelope and Colin, he's like, I'm not going to propose to you. And then Penelope is on her ass again without a man. And she's like, Colin, why would you ruin this for me? And that's when they're in the carriage, I believe, if I'm remembering this correctly. That's when they're in the carriage, they're arguing. She's like, now I'm a spinster, I don't have any options. And then all of a sudden her nipple is out. Actually, that's not when we see her boobs in the show. But they do start making out. And that's when he's like, okay, are you going to marry me or what? So yeah, they get engaged. Similarly, he follows her, finds out that she's Lady Whistledown. And when they get married, he's still mad at her. He still hasn't acknowledged his jealousy and accepted that she wants to be Lady Whistledown. And it's really sad. Like, I think that part ruined the show for me because in the book, Penelope, they're like happily getting married. And in the show, it's like he's marrying her because he doesn't have a choice. If he calls off the wedding, that'll ruin her reputation, and he doesn't want to do that. Like, he still, like, loves her, but it's not romantic. And I didn't like that. I wish it could have been a loving wedding day instead of such a tense one. But anyway, they get married, and Cressida again tries to take credit for being Lady Whistledown. In the series, it's because she also can't find a husband, and her dad is like, if you don't get married, I'm taking away your dowry and you're gonna have to move to Wales with your great aunt or something. And she's like, please no. And then her dad is like, okay, I found this old man who's old enough to be your grandfather. He wants to marry you. And he's like, if we get married, all of this that you are, this hat and that dress, has to go. And she's like, I don't like either of these options. And so she thinks that if she announces that she is Lady Whistledown she'll be able to get the money from the queen. And I think in the show it's 10,000 instead of 1,000 that the queen offers. Cressida is like, if I get this money, I can run off and make a life for myself somewhere else. But of course, the queen does not believe her. And Cressida can't write. And so her mom tries to help her, but it doesn't work. And also, Penelope is like, you're not taking credit for my thing. And so again, Penelope puts out another letter and is like, Cressida is not Lady Whistledown. Unlike the book, Cressida really wants to find out who Lady Whistledown is, and so she goes door to door to every print shop in London and is like, who is Lady Whistledown? And finally she comes across a boy who was like, I know what she looks like. She has red hair and blah, blah, blah. And then Cressida is like, okay, it's Penelope. I don't know. She makes the connection. It's Penelope. And she just does try to blackmail her again. But even though Penelope has the money, she's like, I'm not paying you. The queen is like, I know it's one of y'all Bridgerton people, and no one fesses up until the very end. In front of everyone at a ball, Penelope is like, it's me. And yeah, oh, another plot. So at the end of season 2, Penelope's best friend, who is also a Bridgerton, I can't remember her name, she finds out that Penelope is Lady Whistledown, and she is very mad. So throughout this season, they're like not friends, they have beef, and then eventually she forgives her. Anyway, Penelope announces that she is Lady Whistledown. Colin acknowledges his jealousy and accepts that she's Lady Whistledown, and they live happily ever after and have a baby, and everything is all good. They were only happily in love for a very brief time during this season, and that really bothered me. I wish they could have been happier for a larger amount of time. Like I said, they were very unhappy when they were getting married. It's like they made out in the backseat of his carriage, announced their engagement, and then immediately they had beef, and then things were not settled until the very end of the show. And it was like, I wish I could have seen Penelope just be a little happier for a little bit longer. Because she is Lady Whistledown, we'll get to see more of that in future seasons, but I wish her love story would have just been a little bit more joyful. So yeah, that is my book to show comparison of season 3 of Bridgerton / Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, book 4 of the Bridgerton series. Let me know your thoughts on both in the comments below. When it comes to the age-old question of which is better, I do have to pick the series, but there are so many other parts of the show that aren't in the book that make the series good. And so it feels like an unfair comparison. It just feels like the book inspires the show, but the show goes in its own direction. And I think it does it well, even though the season was not the best season of the past 3. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next video. The next video will be a viewer recommendation from a comment in a previous video, so I'm very excited for that, and I look forward to seeing you then.